I apologize for being late. My wife was in a car accident this afternoon, and she's going to be okay. She's just banged up a good bit, and the car, took the brunt of it. But at any rate, what I wanted to do was tell you a little bit about myself, my qualifications, my background, and experience. I am a Republican candidate for sheriff here in Pasco County. I'm a 25-year veteran, law enforcement officer, and former commander of patrol operations at your sheriff's office for the previous 11 years. I'm the only candidate in this race, in the Republican race, that has the wisdom and experience garnered from growing up and earning promotions through the ranks, and the experience and training that comes along with that. I served as a volunteer auxiliary officer for the state of Florida while I owned and operated 2 small businesses in Northwest Florida. Then entered full-time law enforcement service over 25 years ago. As a patrol officer for the state, I was awarded many special recognition and achievement awards, such as life-saving, up to and include Officer of the Year presentation by the Governor's Cabinet. I've served as a field training officer. That's new men and women coming out of the police academy get assigned to a training officer in the field to teach them more specifically how to apply what they've learned in the academy setting before they're released to work solo. I've served as a police instructor, not only at police academy level, but also as adjunct in advanced and specialized training courses. I've served as a first line supervisor, what you would probably realize is like a squad sergeant on shift. A lieutenant in our headquarters in Tallahassee, where I did many things. Some bills I drafted that are currently on the books in Florida law, passed by the legislature. Did bill analysis, economic impact statements on different legislation proposals. I was one of the individuals for my agency that drafted the response letters for the governor to sign to address individuals' concerns, both as communities, individuals, and businesses. Then as a captain over 13 counties here in Central Florida, in Tampa, where Pasco was one of those 13. So Pasco's been an area of my responsibility for over 15 years. Then ultimately, the next step was Governor Bush was elected. My understanding, didn't have a personal conversation with him, but I was solicited for a special project. Shortly after he was elected, actually before he took office, I was informed that he was sort of beat up about being pro-development, not so concerned about the environment during his campaign, and he had concerns of who was doing environmental crime enforcement. Basically, in the state of Florida, nobody at that time. There's always been a civil enforcement type of process through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, but not criminal. We're not talking about littering. We're talking about felony crimes where people or companies illegally dispose of hazardous waste materials that affect our drinking water, our lands, our air, and so forth. So I was solicited to get that off the ground, and I did so from the scratch, and fell back to a role of a regional commander of criminal investigations, spanning from Orlando down through Key West. We've made numerous cases. It was almost like hunting on a baited field, if you could imagine, because of just decades of nobody even looking at this stuff. We were serving 3 to 5 search warrants a week on mainly commercial properties, but I also served a search warrant on the City Hall of Gretna, the town of Gretna, just east of Tallahassee, because the mayor himself was involved in criminal activities of such. One of the largest cases where, as far as penalty imposed for such a crime, was prosecuted during my tenure and under my supervision through federal court out of Pensacola, and that's where the Pensacola, not the Pensacola Bay Bridge, but the new, what's called the Bose Bridge, former Speaker of the House championed that bridge, but the people facilitating the construction, an international construction company, was doing some bad things and dumping hazardous materials into Pensacola Bay. While I was doing that, there was a sheriff elected here in Pasco, Bob White. I didn't know him. He said that we had worked together on a task force years ago, or that he was part of, that I was spearheading. But he asked me to come work for him. And I didn't know him, but we talked several times, and ultimately I believed in his vision for Pasco and changed uniforms, so to speak, as we say in law enforcement. So in 2001, I joined the Pasco Sheriff's Office as third in command, managing patrol operations countywide. In addition to frontline patrol operations, I also managed the Division of Special Operations, which is the K-9, the traffic units, the aviation unit, the bomb tech type people, the SWAT team, the hostage negotiation teams, and so forth. So for the previous 11 years, I have served as the senior incident commander for all critical events in Pasco County, from the fires, the floods, the hurricanes in the 2000s, to high-risk situations such as search warrant executions by our SWAT team, barricaded subjects, hostages situations, and so forth. Prior to that, of course, with the state, I had a lot of training and experience in critical incident management as well, and also heavily involved in the preparation of our comprehensive plans for pre, post, and recovery phases of any critical incident, such as the St. Pete riots in the late 90s, where I played a strong role there, leading the teams of officers, not once but twice when the riots occurred. I also, as I said, managed the Special Operations Division, but also the training section, which is a large responsibility within your sheriff's office, but then our property evidence section. When I came to Pasco in 2001, we had to do a transition audit. It's by law that one sheriff leaving transitions to the next, there has to be some audits conducted, if you will, and some documents that both of them sign acknowledging what one is taking from the other as far as responsibility. The property evidence section had not been inventoried in 14 years. It was basically a lot unaccounted for. And during that audit, I learned that there was so much mismanagement. It was amazing the FBI had never come in and put crime scene tape around the place. Up to and include the previous sheriff had knowledge that there was $10,000 cash missing out of there, which wasn't disclosed until after he lost the election. So it took a while to inventory it, clean it up, and destroy and or return people's property back to the rightful owner, over 40-something thousand pieces of evidence. But it's a well-oiled machine now, and we actually moved it into a more suitable building in Land O'Lakes from Dade City. We have accomplished many things in those previous 11 years. One current issue was our crime, and it's what we do. Crime, of course, affects our quality of life and our economic situations in our county, as it would any community. During this previous 11 years, I've implemented proactive policing strategies, such as intelligence-led policing and other things, which has garnered results of declining crime rate over the years to the 2011 17-year low record for Pasco County. We've done that not by myself, but working with the deputies through training and leadership, and you've got some great deputies. They deserve a lot of credit. But in addition to that, we've reduced the response times to emergency calls for service countywide, to where when you dial 911, the time you hang up the phone until the deputy gets to your doorstep is now half of the national norm. And we've done that with a minimal staff. Our staff size is 1.2 1.2 to 1.3 deputies per, 100,000 citizens. Where you go to Tampa, you go to Polk, you go to Hernando, you go to Pinellas, you're looking at 2 to 3 officers per 1,000. So again, your deputies work very, very hard, and their heart for service is commendable. We have also have, for instance, like in our specialized units, such as our squad, they train hard every week. They train with other agencies for mutual aid purposes, so that if there is a critical incident, which no jurisdiction is immune from, that exceeds our capabilities, whether it be short-term or long-term protracted, to where we can call upon those other agencies and work seamlessly together. I've ensured that that is in place. But back to crime. Unfortunately, I left the office of sheriff in December of last year. Since my departure, crime is again on the rise. According to the agency's own internal reports, the leadership, for whatever reason, is, demonstrating that auto burglaries, here's their report, their graphs, auto burglaries have doubled. Burglaries, be it residential or commercial, have nearly doubled. Robberies have tripled, and vehicle thefts have doubled.
This is since your departure.
This is the first 6 months of this year compared to the same period last year when I was there, managing from. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of focus on this election, and I'm not a politician. I'm an operational guy. I can play law enforcement Jeopardy with most anybody. This is my home. This is where, like many of you, I've spent many years raising my family, going to work and attending church. It's important. People ask me to get in this race because of their concerns. There's a lot to contrast me against my opponents. As I said, I've served in various positions coming up through the ranks and garnered that experience and training and leadership opportunities that I am able to bring to bear, as I have in the proven results that I've just spoke about. Whereas my foremost opponent, the current interim sheriff, when he was appointed at the sheriff's retirement, had a total of 6 years law enforcement experience if you counted every agency he worked for, even though his last was not even a law enforcement position. But if you count it, he had a total of 6 years law enforcement experience between 4 different agencies. He had, his first position was it's Philadelphia School Police, which is a separate agency than the city police. He worked there for 5 months and resigned. He left there, went to Fairfax County Police Department. He was there for 3 years and resigned. He went from there to Florida and to work with the Broward County Sheriff's Office. He was there exactly 8 months and resigned, and then went to work for ultimate Speaker House Marco Rubio for 4 years as a Deputy Chief of Staff. When Marco went to the Washington, he was appointed to the Florida Highway Patrol as a Deputy Chief of Staff, a non-sworn position. But that's the real difference, if you ask me. It's knowing what to do, when to do it, and where to put that focus. Currently, my comprehensive plan, I have intimate knowledge of the operations and administration of the Sheriff's Office. I managed approximately $30 million of the Sheriff's overall $80+ million budget annually. If you go to Hillsborough, there's 5 of me, my position. You go to Hernando, there's 3 of my position, and so forth. There was just 1 of me managing frontline patrol operations in this county. And it's intense, but it's doable. And demonstrated by the documented success. What we have to do is, in my opinion, is we have to have a top-down change that returns all law enforcement back to fighting crime and illegal drugs. Currently, folks, that's not happening. I can tell you it's just not happening. There are some positions, it's not 100 or anything, it's a handful that are basically advanced positions for wherever the interim sheriff is going to show up during this campaign, with vehicles, lights, and equipment to stand tall and look pretty, like the guard, and they need to be out patrolling your neighborhoods and your business districts. And there are others. There are political positions at the sheriff's office that are sworn and non-sworn positions that were nothing but political appointments. And we're talking high-level, senior executive staff level positions. I pledge to make that change where all deputies, which are the most expensive positions that we as taxpayers fund, are 100% back focused on preventing crime and improving our quality of life. I pledge to reduce the size and the cost of the sheriff's executive staff. Currently, the sheriff's executive staff exceeds $1 million in total cost to you, the taxpayers. This is very lean times. Other county officials are doing what? They're cutting their budgets and working within their means, just the same thing that we have to do in our own personal lives and household budgets, as well as our businesses. Currently, the interim sheriff is asking for a $2.9 million increase from last year's level of funding. 2.9, and that does not include any cost of living adjustment for the deputies within it, okay? During candidate forums, he's been asked about it, and he claims, he asserts that it's because of rising fuel costs. Well, again, what do you do? What do you do in your home, in your family income when fuel goes up? We can work within our means. For the previous 11 years, just managing my areas of responsibility, again, $30 million of the sheriff's overall budget, I have been able to save we, the taxpayers, up to $750,000 per year by being, good fiscal steward and using best management practices. Up to $750,000 a year. And every year, that unexpended money, the sheriff would give back to the county. Again, having control over the entire agency, I will stop wasteful spending that is currently occurring. Our sheriff spent nearly $200,000 earlier last year to outfit Newport Richie's SWAT team, under the pretense that he was creating a multi-agency SWAT team. Again, I have reason to believe that was for political purposes. Now, it was drug money, it was forfeiture money, that $200,000. I'm not duplicitous, I have no reason to lie to you or hyper-exaggerate my resume or what the facts and circumstances are. It's what's called forfeiture money. It wasn't tax money that he spent to do that. But at the same time, we have needs, true needs, that trump those political needs to spend that money on. And I'll give you a prime example. I could talk forever, but there is a device that I've been advocating for quite some time that would enhance not only our deputy safety, but the public safety. It's technology that's not brand new. It's been around a little while. It's on every fire truck and ambulance in your county and most other jurisdictions. It's called a red light preemption device. It's just sending an infrared signal in advance of the vehicle, and it changes the signal to green.
You mean that little black box on top of the lights that if you flash your high beams on, you get to switch light?
Well, that's the receiver. That's the receiver. But you got to have the transmitter to make it really work.
Oh.
So you're saying it doesn't actually work when you do that?
No, not to my knowledge.
It works to me for me every time.
But that device, what does it do? If you're rushing to your home or business, lights and siren, that's a dangerous emergency vehicle operation because there's other citizens and pedestrians on the road, of course, and we need to do so safely. And or if we're in a pursuit of a suspect, we have been trained how to drive in those kind of conditions at those speeds, but not necessarily so the suspect, right? Those devices allow us to control the intersections in advance of that pursuit in order to hold other traffic and keep that lane clear. That's and many other things is what we need to use those precious dollars for.
I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up.
Okay.
So we're not here till midnight. So.
Okay.
Any questions for our candidate for sheriff?
On team juvenile violence.
Juvenile violence, it is definitely a concern. We have some gang activity in Pasco County,
A lot of gang activities.
you know, and we've worked hard. We've actually, through the intelligence-led policing initiatives that have started in 2001, one analyst was assigned to just track gangs and juvenile offenders, okay? And then deputies would go and augment what was the work being done by our juvenile probation officers to make sure they're in compliance, they're at home, they're not skipping school, all these kind of things. Unfortunately, that no longer exists.
Yeah, because I was seeing more and more gang signs going up all around New Port Richey, and now here more in Land Lakes.
Yes, ma'am, unfortunately. But we can fix that. And if elected, with your support, these things can be corrected, and we can make great progress before this becomes a severe issue that it'll take more money and a lot more deputies to tackle. Again, I'm Maurice Radford. I'm one of 3 candidates in the August 14th primary. I would certainly appreciate your consideration and support. I have some information here. I'd be happy to leave. Gives you a little bit about myself. My voteradford.com website talks more about me personally and professionally. So please check me out. Thank you.
Just the one thing you mentioned, that you left the police force, you left Pasco County Police Force. When?
December of last year.
And you did that because?
These issues that I'm speaking of. It's the politics, not about the public. And some misinformation being told to the public. For instance, our interim sheriff was telling people in public forums at community meetings that he's reduced crime and holiday, for instance, one of many, by 42%. First of all, that's impossible. I manage those numbers every day. We have reduced crime over the years, but 42%, no. His own document, the same one I just showed you, I can show you that district, which shows crime has actually went up, not gone down by 42%. I have low tolerance for people who don't speak the truth, especially our politicians.
But you had to resign
I
in order
resigned.
to run.
Absolutely. By law, I cannot be a candidate and an employee at the same time. Only the incumbent can. Okay? Make sense? All right. Thank you. Thank you for your